can stop me now. No matter how hard you try, you can't stop me now.
Picture yourself, the artist, sitting at your desk, or driving your car, or scrolling Twitter, and a light bulb goes off. An idea. One so strong it is inhibited by nothing, limitless creative potential, and
No matter how hard you try, you can't stop me now.
flash forward 2 months, and that idea is still just that, an idea, resigned to a shelf with all your others, too daunting to carry out. This is a reality all too common in my life as an artist at the onset of a lifelong practice. I'm sure some of you share in that sentiment, and understandably so. It's easy to see why our inspirations are deserving of the title. They've achieved success, defined their style, and have a whole group of people striving just to emulate what they do best. But no artist has simply started from scratch. Every artist has influences, every work has references. If you're a DST 3880 student, the words "everything is a remix" are burned into your memory inescapably forever. For those of you who aren't, this phrase means that everything mankind creates takes inspiration from something that has come before. This isn't stealing, rather it's collectivism, and a summation of humanity's joint creativity. Kirby Ferguson, the person who coined this phrase, states in the video,
"All musicians are connected. And these connections cross continents and oceans and decades and centuries. They transcend the barriers that divide people and even unite the living and the dead, whose creativity lives on through us. When we create, we often seem alone, but we are in fact together."
If everything is a remix, that means that every artist is a conservationist. That word is of special importance here because every artist may be a conservationist, but not every conservationist operates with the same set of rules. Determining what type of conservation you do might go a long way in determining what type of artist you are. Traditionally, art conservation that began in the golden age of practical fine arts can be referred to as art restoration. This practice can be defined as the repair or renovation of artworks that have already sustained injury or decay, and the attempted restoration of such objects to something approaching their original, undamaged appearance. While this practice originally consisted of simple touch-ups and new coats of varnish, today art restorers use very sophisticated technology and a variety of chemical solvents to do their work. Most are well versed in chemistry and radiologic technology, but at the heart of it all, these people are still artists. Practically trained in painting, etching, frame building, and more, these artists use their skills to honor those who came before them. It's a selfless profession. Most of the work they do is non-invasive and reversible, meaning that they act as a torchbearer for the art they believe is worth being remembered. Art conservators strive to improve the condition of artwork through non-destructive preservation and restoration procedures. This definition might ring true for restoration experts working with one-of-one practical art pieces, but not every artist maintains the same altruistic goals as those who restore. Some artists want to build on their influences, others want to challenge them. In the age of iterative technology, there is an ability to accomplish this that has never quite been seen before. With this newfound focus on artwork being meta and referential, the practice of sampling has gained steam over the past 50 years. While sampling is primarily attributed to music, with producers chopping up the reference, looping it, and building a beat around it, sampling expands to all mediums. We see the sampling of ideas. In visual mediums, there's a sampling of imagery. In all mediums, there's a sampling of narrative and technique. While the technology we have today can ensure that those who utilize sampling do not physically damage the source material, it can't protect the integrity of the ideas explored by the source material. There are a whirlwind of ethical debates swirling around appropriate ways to use our influences. As we stated earlier, not every artist conserves the same way, and among those who conserve through sampling, not every artist samples the same. This raises an important question. What is the proper way to sample from someone else's creativity? There are two distinct forms of sampling, interpolation and collage, that might be best explored by looking at the artists who utilize them. Slauson Malone, whose unique take on experimental hip-hop we heard at the beginning of this video, takes the perspective of conservationists through collage. His use of sampling allows him to thread his influences directly into his work. By using the digital tools at his disposal, he can take this a step further by morphing these sounds to fit his vision. Multiple references can be concealed in one track, giving the audience the chance to invest their energy in unpacking them all. Malone's choices as a conservationist work twofold. He can create a body of work that is identifiably his, but he doesn't have to conceive every sound on his own and can create a narrative that includes a myriad of different perspectives. Production duo The Futuristics utilize the practice of interpolation in their work, which can be defined as using a melody, or portions of a melody, from a previously recorded track but re-recording that melody instead of sampling it. Producers and music artists have streamlined this method of conservation over the past 3 decades, and it is becoming increasingly more prominent in pop music. Let's look at their song Somebody, performed by Natalia LaRose and Jeremiah. In it, the Futuristics primarily interpolate Whitney Houston's I Wanna Dance With Somebody. They also interpolate brief sections of Shots by LMFAO and Do You Really Want to Know by Lilix. The Futuristics are hitmakers. In nearly 20 years of activity in the industry, they haven't yet released an album, focusing instead on creating radio anthems that people enjoy listening to. By connecting their work to something so iconic, they can both pay homage to the historical progression of pop music and its pioneers, and imbue their song with a sense of familiarity that immediately establishes them with their audience. In the song Somebody, the Futuristics use this familiarity to juxtapose the source material, taking Whitney Houston's message of the enduring passion that can be shared between two people and modernizing it to fit the hip-hop standards and sex appeal seen in the music industry today. So that raises the question, is there a clear choice between sampling by collage and sampling by interpolation? Both of these music acts certainly raise their own unique blend of ethical questions. Slauson Malone is not immediately forthright with his references, preferring instead to conceal them and incentivize his audience to seek them out and add to their understanding of the collective narrative he's building. To some, this is part of the fun, but to others, it can be considered a form of plagiarism. The Futuristics, on the other hand, are very openly sharing who they are influenced by. While Slauson Malone conceals for the purpose of giving his work its own individuality, critics of the Futuristics might say their work is lacking in this regard. Are they building on the radio hits that came before them, or capitalizing off of them? While I personally consider myself a fan of Malone's work and the conservation methods he uses, the Futuristics have songs that are multi-platinum and their music has found its way onto the radio and into the ears of millions. That means that this question might not be so cut and dry. Let's look at the work of Morgan Mandalay, a contemporary artist who is operating in a completely different medium. He primarily practices as a painter and oftentimes recreates aspects of the work of painters he takes influence from. He refers to his conservation techniques as that of quizzical homonym, meaning something may look the same but takes on a different or further meaning. In a studio visit held over Zoom, Mandalay discussed his process in depth.
The thing that I find like I hold in common with making exhibitions of other people's work or making exhibitions or specifically even paintings for myself is that they're both thinking spaces. Like they're spaces that I can go into with a kind of like gut interest, but they unfold. Like I want them to unfold for me. I don't want them to I don't want to go into them knowing what'll happen. And so I generally start with kind of, like a framework with, and I know this is just sort of like curating 101, but we're like, I see work and it makes sense to me that it goes together. And then I sit around and go like, well, what the fuck? Yeah. Like what's the story there?
Because he allows his work to take on a life of its own in the process of making it, he does not tie himself to only using collage or only using interpolation. The conservation practice used heavily relies on what the painting wants to say. In his exhibition on Colonists, Mandalay works as a conservator utilizing collage. The paintings contain direct references to media from his childhood, including family photos, features from his childhood home painted from memory, and recreations of minor elements of the paintings that influenced these ones. The hand on the light switch is of particular importance here, directly referencing the hand seen in Gericault's The Raft of Medusa. An audience is left to wonder if the hand in Mandalay's work has reached out to turn the light switch on, or has just turned it off, succumbing to the darkness, much in the same way they're left to wonder in The Raft of Medusa if the hand is reaching out as it approaches the shore or yearning for a land it is departing from. In still life with pomegranate, lemon, pear, apple, orange, and fly, Mandalay is working within the conservationist method of interpolation. The centerpiece, both in imagery and message, of this painting is a direct recreation of Courbet's still life. Mandalay's painting, which sees Courbet's fruit shrouded in fire, provides commentary on the idea of a still life. The fire has neither overtaken the painting nor been put out. Instead, the painting is in a moment of stasis. This commentary directly connects to Mandalay's perspective on Courbet's life at the time he did his version. Courbet was being held as a political prisoner in France at the time, and he too was in a moment of stasis, not knowing if his life would be enveloped in flames or saved from the fire. Because Mandalay's work suggests that sampling through interpolation and collage can both be worthwhile ventures, does that mean he has figured out the spectrum artists must balance between individuality and influence? It's hard to say for certain, but it seems like a worthwhile pursuit. The question is, how do we get from here to the level that Mandalay is working on?
No matter how hard I try, nothing seems to work. Words still turn, but I tried, and nothing seems to work. Words still burn, burn.
Sometimes it's easy to feel like no matter how hard you try, nothing's going to go your way. This is natural. In today's day and age, it can oftentimes feel like you're being swallowed up by an ocean of competitors that span hundreds of years before us and continue to grow by the second. How do we even decide what type of artist we are? How do we even earn that title, artist? Standing at the precipice of a lifelong practice is daunting, but shouldn't it be reassuring as well? It's easy to get sucked into the idea that you have to be as good as your influences, whether that means you are as unique as they are or you're identical to them. And yeah, it's important to set goals for yourself, and it's important to think about whose work speaks to you, but it all starts with what you can accomplish right now. Now is the time to take risks and stumble, and to explore different blends of conservation techniques, influences, and even mediums. The artist this video is referenced, and the artist who influenced them, and the artist who influenced their influences have left clues for us to follow, but these are not the end-all be-all of who you are as an artist, because you're you and no one else is. And as long as we keep creating, we'll keep taking steps towards answering these questions that evade us. We just have to keep doing it.